You are listening to the Level Up Gaming Podcast, episode 151, House Rules. In today's episode, we discuss house rules. We discuss why they are different from rules as written and why you want to add them to your game. We also break down different types of house rules and what they add to the game as a whole. If you'd like to participate in the discussion or leave us feedback, you can contact us at levelupyourgamingpodcast@gmail.com or find us on Facebook at facebook.com/levelupyourgaming. If you like the content and want to hear more of the show, subscribe and will ensure you don't miss an episode. New episodes come out almost every Wednesday. Also, please review, tell a friend about the podcast, or share with your gaming group. Now sit back and enjoy the episode. Welcome into the Level Up Your Gaming Podcast. My name is Aaron, and joining me virtually, I've got Josh. Josh, how you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. How you doing, Aaron?
I'm doing wonderful. It's been quite busy for me, obviously. So if you're like, why is the podcast happening so erratically? Why is it getting released so erratically? I just closed on a house, so we got a lot of things going on. It's been very busy. Also, work is incredibly busy right now.
Yeah, well, congratulations are in order.
You.
I'm looking forward to coming out and seeing the new place at some point.
Yeah. Once we are actually moved in, after we do all the work that we're planning on doing before moving in, then we'll get you in there and we'll have you and the whole gang over for a good time.
Yeah, that'll be nice. Are there going to be any specific things I should know about the place? Any I don't know, house rules?
Oh well, so we re-roll our crits and dragons, instafrag, things like that.
Good to know. Yeah, I thought it would be fun in honor of your recent home accomplishments to talk about house rules.
Yes, house rules. Yeah, I mean, so if you think about it, and I think I think in the podcast, I think I talked about this with Jared before, but the whole concept of the house rules. So, like, obviously, you have the book, and the books are the rules as written, and everything else that you sort of do outside of the realms of those possibilities, those are your house rules. And I guess the ones that actually you really adopt and consistently use, those are really your house rules. The ones that you sort of make up on the fly, they are technically house rules, but they are not actually, I guess, consistent house rules. Like, so a good example would be when we had the Critical Role episode, we were talking about how, he says, like, tell me how you do this. Like, that is a house rule. It's more of an unwritten house rule. But other things that you might have for house rules would be, well, whenever somebody does this really cool thing, they get advantage. Like, if you describe it cool, you get advantage. That's a house rule.
Yeah, and I'd like to, sort of separate the difference between game-specific house rules and more game-agnostic house rules. I like the concept of game-agnostic house rules, ones that sort of fit in you can apply this to any game that you're playing, because then you've got sort of, you're looking for not specific things on how this game is broken or how to fix this flawed mechanic, or I don't like that particular spell or ability, but you're looking for more let's make it a better game no matter what we're doing. Let's work with each other to make a good game. And I think that also helps differentiate between house rules and homebrew. There is a little bit of layover on those two things, where you've got people that make a rule about like a spell or an ability, because, hey, this ability is broken, or I don't like the way the spell works, and they change it. And that's more like, that's homebrew. You're making your own version of specific things in that game. But definitely house rules would be, ways that you want to play, things that really encapsulate the experience for your players more than just the rules of the game.
Yes. Yes, I agree. There's definitely that separation. It depends on the game that you're doing because yeah, you're right. Some house rules are there to improve the gaming experience because something sucks as it was written, like fully automatic fire and White Wolf, and or something just doesn't make any sense in terms of how the skill check works or how it interacts with the environment. And on the flip side of things, you like said, you're looking for game agnostic house rules, and so that is where you get. I mean, this is giving extra dice because of description is a game agnostic house rule. Giving, telling, doing narrative things is a game agnostic house rule. Or rewarding, things in that regards is a good example of like a game agnostic house rule. Sometimes it's hard because if you are not working within the same dice system, your house rule, anything that involves dice rolling tends to become game specific. Anything outside of that is more agnostic.
Yeah. Well, okay. So I thought you made a good point before we started this when I brought up this point was that at some point in the past, almost everything here was a house rule. All of the ways that the games have evolved came from somebody's house rule somewhere.
If you listen to episode 150 in the retrospective of Tabletop RPGs, I believe Chainmail was a bunch of house rules.
Yeah, for a game that somebody else was just making up on their own.
Yeah.
So it's house rules built on top of house rules built on top of house rules. So don't be afraid to come up with these things and try stuff out. If you want to try something good, there's plenty of stuff. There's plenty of resources out there. And I've gone through a bunch of these and I've got a number of them listed here. Things that I like. I don't use them in all of my games, but I do look for these in games that I think would be beneficial for them. But I'd like to also point out there are official house rules in certain games. In Dungeons and Dragons, 5th edition, in the Dungeon Master's Guide, Chapter 8 starts with some, what they call them table rules, but I think these are really great places to start. There's 3 of them right off the bat. Number 1 is foster respect. We're talking about not bringing personal conflict into your game. I think it's a great idea. Like, you are here to have a good time. Don't bring beef from outside the game into the game.
Don't keep killing Jim's character because you don't like Jim in real life.
I mean, just don't invite him to the game then. I mean,
yeah.
Another one, and I know we've talked about this, is avoiding distractions. Turn your phone off. Don't be playing on your phone while you're supposed to be gaming.
What are you talking about? It's so much better when you turn to and Steve, what do you do? And he's like, hold on a second.
Peaches.
What's everyone doing again?
Yeah. Is sitting there watching TikTok videos instead of, paying attention to what he's supposed to be doing for his turn. And then I think the most important rule that I have ever seen in any book, and it's an official print, it's have snacks.
I disagree with this one.
I mean, it should be decided before the session that somebody's bringing snacks and drinks. And specifically, it says this is often something the players can handle. Oh. Just, put it out there. Players should be bringing snacks.
So if you're following Dungeons and Dragons to a T, you better be following those 3 rules. That's all I gotta say about this.
Bring snacks for your game master. It's important. And that's it for this week. No,
that's all the house rules that we've got for you. They're game agnostic. You can take them anywhere. All right, folks. Have a great week. Where, Josh?
You can take them anywhere as long as you bring a pizza. Yeah. So when I was looking at this, I thought I would break the different types of agnostic house rules into like 3 categories. Ones that are better for gameplay, ones that are better for cooperative play, and then ones that are better for mental health.
Okay. Interesting. That's a good way to break them down. What about ones that are just like fun to add to a game?
Well, that could be gameplay. That could be
I mean, they don't
anything.
necessarily make gameplay better. I'll give you an example.
Uh,
We can describe. I'll let you go down your list of ones that are better for gameplay. Are these all ones that you've used?
I have used, yeah, I've used each of these actually. Um, so the first one I like was the I know a guy, and I think we've talked about this before. Is that in some games when you've got a an investigation or like a city or something like that, it's nice to have an unnamed NPC that your players can go to for a thing. They can say that I know a guy when they need a thing, and then that person then becomes fleshed out and it exists in your world. It's until you need them, they are some sort of nebulous person. But as soon as you need a thing, you can go and get, I've got that guy that gets me that one thing. And then it becomes a story point. This is not to be abused. This is not like, I know a guy that can get me a nuke. This is, I know a guy who knows where that sort of stuff would be found, or who can, work a deal for me and I've got other things to do. It becomes a story point. And you've now created an NPC specifically for a thing that you want to get done or need to have happen. And I think it's useful for that because your players may not always know, what's the best course of action for things or how to do stuff. And if they've got an idea like, I know a guy, they can just, you can leave some of that discretion up, and they're basically giving you the reins to help progress the story in a way that's beneficial.
Okay. An alternate way that you can do this is there's two ways that you can do this. These are ones that I've used at my table. So one of them is we call it the consigliere moment. Okay, where everybody, regardless of the scene that they are actually participating in, can feed you advice and information based on what the GM has said. We call it it's basically being able to bounce ideas off of your friend. It's like phone a friend. Okay, so that is very useful. Let's say that you are engaging in a one-on-one scene with somebody and you're kind of stuck, you're kind of muddling through it. The rest of the table can kind of sidebar with you and kind of be like, well, yeah, these are some of the things that we would have talked about beforehand to maybe help you along with the conversation. It's a little bit of grease in the wheels. The other one that we've done that's along that's in the same vein is breaking of the fourth wall. Similar to the consigliere moment, when you're outside of a game, when you're trying to plan your next steps, the GM is not giving you direction onto where to go, but the GM is listening to your ideas and going, that's interesting, and sort of conferring information upon you that you might already understand and know. So, like, if you have previously discovered that the killer uses a baseball bat to execute all of his murders, and you have somehow forgotten that important detail, and
you weren't taking notes.
Because you weren't taking notes, and now you're in a moment where you're kind of talking it out with the players. The GM go, well, you know the murder weapon, it's a baseball bat. So this guy who was shot with a gun clearly wasn't murdered by the same guy. It is a little bit, I don't know, you might take it or leave it, but I mean, it does help grease the wheels. It helps you get unstuck from places that you happen to be in, which is, I know a guy. It's basically come up with a house rule that allows you to unstuck yourself.
Yeah. And there's a lot of different ways it can go, but having something in place to sort of move the story along, to fix those moments of, I don't know where we're going, I don't know what we're doing, it makes it a better game. It keeps people from getting frustrated. So yeah, I know a guy, talk with your friends, reconfirm information, all great ideas. I wrote this in here, but I don't know if this really, this is not agnostic. This is more specific. Just fix broken gameplay. It's always a good idea to house rule broken gameplay away. If something doesn't work, if something is causing problems, Um, if it doesn't work as intended, if it's supposed to work a certain way, feel free to find a way to make it work.
Be cautious with this one, I would advise, because this one can quickly become something where, in an attempt to fix something that's broken, you break something worse in another area. So, a lot, obviously, if you're playing with a very well-known game like D&D, most people probably have found ways to work through bad gameplay and bad gameplay design. Like one of the things in D&D that I think drives people insane is that you get a free action to unsheath your weapon the first time, but if you change your weapons, God forbid, it's like it's the same action, but no, once you decide to change, you're screwed. So
well, and I've seen other things where people are, you get knocked down to 0 hit points, and somebody from across the map just yells at you, so you get back up because they're like, healing word is annoying, and because it ruins any sort of danger in combat. I'm like, but it's limited. There's other things going on. So some people don't like that. Some people don't like the fact that when you do get up, you've got a full action. You've got, your movement, you've got your action, you get your bonus action, the whole kit and caboodle. And there's no sort of, as long as you've got 1 hit point. But those are choices to the game. If you're talking about, a spell that just doesn't make any sense, there's one in D&D that lets you get advantage on your next attack, but it takes a full action to do it. So instead of rolling now to attack and then rolling again next turn, you're only attacking once, and you're still getting the chance for 2 attacks, but you just wasted an entire turn doing it. So like those things are kind of broken, and there's ways around that. But that's up to you to sort of figure out how you're going to do that, or just avoid it. And honestly, avoiding it might be the better option because you could be introducing game-breaking things into your system. So yeah, watch it.
This might be careful with it because the game has been pretty well balanced, and the things that you probably will start to notice being imbalanced are things that people probably have addressed. And again, the collective mind is better than you going, I know how to fix that. I'll just add more of this to it, or I'll subtract this from. No, like it's not quite that simple. So look for some more nuanced changes with them.
And to that point, adjusting difficulty is also sort of a homebrew thing, and this is very dependent on your group. Some people want to play an easier game. Some people want the grimmest, dankest experience. And it just one house rule or a couple of house rules in place to make combat really difficult or more punishing, like wounds. I've done games that, massive damage means you get wounds, and those things can be debilitating. I don't care for it, but I have played with them. Crit failures and critical stumbles, where failing can either break what you're working with, or it can actually even damage you or other party members. It's interesting. I don't find it enjoyable, but I know people that do. And another one, it's fairly popular if you talk to people online, is the hidden death saves, where your party doesn't know if you are surviving, rolling good on your death saves, or if they need to come and rescue you immediately.
Interesting. Again, a lot of these here for adjusting difficulty with the rules is, again, typically my advice would be when you're trying to adjust difficulty is start lighter than you wish to end up at. Because it's just easier. It makes more sense that things get more difficult. It makes a lot less sense when things are super difficult and you're like, well, I got to get rid of this thing. It's like, well, why do we get rid of this thing from the world? Like, why does it no longer exist? It's like, well, because I didn't want you all to die so fast. Like, that tends not to work better. I always say that with combat. Combat is more of an additive experience. You can add more to the combat. It's much harder to have everybody scatter if you're getting your ass kicked. So
Yeah. Also, and to your point, if you've got just one of these, that's plenty to make things more difficult. Adding multiple things in there makes it a slog. It overcomplicates things and it makes it difficult to get stuff done. You get critical failures and wounds on top of it. Somebody rolls a 1 and accidentally crits themselves, and now they're, oh, that's just, it's bad time, right?
Yep.
And then the last one I've got here in Better Gameplay, and I like this, and I've seen it done. I haven't used it in my game, but I've been in games that did. Called Heroic End. It's you are down for the count. You're about to lose. You're going to be dead. Your character's going to be over. It's going to be, Kaputski. But it's kind of the big fight. And you don't want to go out at this point, or it is a big fight in the story. So instead of, continuing to try and survive, you would get the option to tell your GM, I'd like a heroic end. At which point you stand up, you've got your abilities back, you've got your scores back, maybe even get some bonus abilities. But after that round, you're dead. It is, going out with a bang. It is that big heroic moment that you can do something to sort of save the party. It's the you shall not pass moment.
Yes. No, that's a good one. Again, it depends on the game you're telling, but it has its moments, and I think it can be done well, and it can look really good as well.
Yeah. Now, if you re-roll the same character, but instead of wearing gray, he's wearing white, I'm on to you. We're not playing this game.
What do you mean? I made a completely different character. I changed his clothes and everything.
Yeah, his name was Gandalf the Gray. It's now Gandalf the White. You see the difference? Different characters.
Completely.
Yeah. So yeah, I think those are really nice rules for making better gameplay. You can adjust difficulty. You can sort of unstick your party and give people the option to, go out with a bang if you need to. Do you have any other ideas for better gameplay, Aaron?
Again, I don't know if this falls into better gameplay or just a more clever game, or sometimes. I mean, again, the rule of cool can be argued as being better for gameplay and not better. We've done things we have at our table. The if you declare it in the name of John Woo, then we will allow you to make a roll to do it, as long as it's crazy and there are doves involved. But we don't always let that happen. Again, it's thematic based upon the game itself. It can make some things better, but also like the rule of cool, which is you can't just always try to make everything cool to get yourself advantage or whatever you're going to do. So, there has to be a limit to it within your table. It's sort of one of those balancing acts of like, we allow it sometimes, Yeah.
Situational awesomeness.
Yes.
I like situational awesomeness. Okay. That brings us to better for cooperative play. I think a lot of games, Dungeons and Dragons suffers from this a lot, is that there are a number of games where you are the hero, and so is your friend, and so is your other friend. And all the people at the table are heroes in their own right, separately. And they sort of can just be one-man armies. And really, what is keeping the group together other than just angrier monsters? So I like to look for ways to sort of get people to coordinate and to work as a team. And I've found some fun things. One of the things I saw online, I haven't used this yet, but I would like to try it, is break bars. Now, I've played video games that have break bars. Do you know what break bars are, Aaron?
I'm trying to understand it from what you've got written.
Okay. So, in like Guild Wars, and I think some of the recent Final Fantasies, there is sort of an armor that the enemies have. Octopath Traveler has it too. That while that armor is up, they are sort of invincible.
Yeah.
And you need to break that in order to get real damage into them. I wouldn't go that far because that just is wasting turns trying to get through that while they pound on you. And unless both people have it, then that's not really fun. What I think would be fun would be you're telegraphing, like you've got a boss or a big battle or whatnot, and they telegraph a big hit. We're going to like wind up for a big attack. And while those bosses, they may be immune to poisons and stuns and sleeps and stuff like that. That doesn't mean that those spells couldn't be used against that character. Those abilities couldn't be used to sort of prevent them from getting that big hit off. So you all have to sort of work together and get those abilities in, get those spells to prevent the massive laser of doom from just wrecking the party. And that means that you can get to use abilities that either are not normally used, and you have to work as a team to sort of do it.
My suggestion would be, if you're going to go this route, you have to make the threat of, if the attack goes off, it pretty much does kill you, because you have to make it imperative that the activity of stunning or doing the effect is worthwhile at the end of this. It's an interesting concept. It's very video game-ish, but it's an interesting concept.
Yeah. Well, and it's just one of those, it's an idea that would be thrown into a game, and that would be something that you would have as part of your set. The next one that I've got here, I have used, and this is unique skills. This is sort of something that is taking place during character creation, is getting the players to sit down and sort of discuss and plan out who is skilled in what. So that you've got, instead of just
so everybody being a jack of all trades.
Well, one game that I'm in is everybody is a fighter, except for like me. And what you end up with is, okay, well then who's going to do this thing that isn't punching somebody in the face? Oh, it's the guy that isn't the fighter, and everybody else just punches things in the face, which is fine. But, making a balanced team where each one has specialties means that in a situation, it's up to what is the situation to find out who's going to help the party out do the thing. This prevents that one-man army. This prevents the weak link. So you don't get, well, Bob and Tom are both doing they're both proficient in this one thing, but Tom is way better than Bob. So why do we even have Bob?
This is an interesting conundrum, especially the bigger your team gets. Okay, because there's only so many ways that you can specialize across things. Typically, again, it breaks down physical, mental, social is the way that these things sort of break into pieces for. And I'm going to jump into your next point sort of here as we go through this, is that a good house rule is that everybody must be proficient to this level in these things. And everything else is, how you create the uniqueness of your character, meaning that all combat will be at a minimum of this level. And, some people might be above it, but nobody should be below it. So meaning that nobody is insufficient in the combat itself. You might have one super good person at it, but everybody else is at least proficient enough to do it. The flip side of that is when you start to get to like the social mental things, is that, well, then that's where you want to have people specialize. Okay. You want somebody to be your ability to talk to people and persuade people. You might want to have somebody who's really charming and charismatic and can bring people to your side, or you might want to have somebody who is, really, really smart and able to figure out your enigmas and be able to figure out your puzzles, and, somebody who is financially savvy and is able to strike deals across the the city. Things like that are ways that you round out your characters, and it's also the best way to make spotlights for characters. It's those things that make spotlights. It's not the combat. Everybody can shine in combat. Okay. It's really easy to shine in combat because you know what? The games are typically designed to be combat-based games, but everything else is where you make actual spotlights. It's where you actually have scenes where okay, well, now it's Sarah's time to shine, and now it's Tom's time to shine. Now it's Ken's time to shine. You get to pick those spots. They're much easier to assign there. If your big shtick is I'm really good at combat, and it's all I'm really good at, okay, the only time I can make you shine is when I throw a bunch of things at you in combat, and it's hard because there's a lot of luck involved as well in combat. Which is, because you're at the mercy of dice rolls. I can't actually have you role play yourself into that situation.
Yeah. And when you are starting a new game and you've got your players that are going to be sitting down and creating their characters, you will, provide them with information like this is the setting. So plan accordingly. And, requiring them to each have something that they're going to specialize in that's separate from other people so that you've got a group that's going to work well together and give you those opportunities for spotlight moments, it's going to be a better game.
Yeah, I agree. And then again, I'm going to gloss over the shared skills. But that's the way I do it. That's the way we do it in our game. We just give, again, it's a different type of game, but you can apply this to any game, really, is that once you understand how the skills are applied, you can say, well, these are the 3 skills that you get because I need you to be able to, I need you not to be as dumb as a box of rocks. I need you I need you to be able to drive a car or ride a horse. I need you to be able to fight to some extent. I need you to be able to throw a punch, and so that way when I throw you into a combat, a strong gust of wind doesn't put your character into bloodied status and you're just already doing death saves because of that strong gust of wind. So
yeah, well, the shared skills thing that I've got written here, instead of it being everybody needs, like, there's a pool that all your points come from or anything like that. I've seen games that do that. We've talked about them before. What I've got here is, let's say you've got a situation where a party needs to sneak into a place, right? Instead of making everybody roll and the one guy wearing plate armor and carrying, a one-man band on his back, he fails it for everybody. It's a shared skill in that you're either adding them all together and taking an average, or you are taking the high or taking the low. I don't care for the low all the time, but you could also have a situation where the party needs to work together to make a thing, and
that's combined actions. It's a little different than shared skills. I mean, that is better gameplay in my mind, not just so much as like better for the rules of the game. I guess
having a leader in that skill sort of lead the party through it, and that is so that nobody is left behind, or it's not, one guy succeeds and the rest of you fail, and now they're on their own. It's trying to keep the party together. It's trying to move the story in a direction that
it can also help you overcome things that one member might not be capable of overcoming. Like, maybe none of you in the specialization part of this, maybe none of you chose the ability to talk to people. Okay. Like, this might allow you to do that.
Yeah.
By your terrible social skills combined.
You have finally gotten a room at the inn. Yes. It's a nice concept for getting your players to work together. It's that, you are relying on somebody's good rolls to make up for your bad abilities. And, that thief that has the plus 30 to sneak is quiet enough to make sure that the one-man band is, not making too much noise. He's sneaking around silencing the tambourines or whatnot. So
There you go.
and then the last one I like here is player awards. And I know we've done this before in live action and in some other games. It's at the end of a session, you have your players sort of recommend other people. Like, what did you like the other that was done at the table today? What was good? What, who did a good job? And by promoting other players, you would then reward that other player. The thing I saw online would be calling it meta currency. It would be something in game, not too big, not too fancy. A reroll or a one auto success on a non-critical thing, or just something that would happen in game that you could use the next session.
These become kudos. There's a fine line with this as well, because the smaller your table is, or even the bigger your table is, eventually, I almost feel like at this, you're just kind of like handing them out like in a rotating fashion, because some players just play better at the table, and thus they are more likely to gain this meta currency. And there's sort of a favoritism in a live action game. It's a little different because there's so many people, so there's more likelihood that you would eventually get nominated during the live action games. But in a smaller game at a tabletop, this is a sticky wicket. I'll put it that way. So,
well, and you don't have to limit it to one for a game session. If everybody wants to nominate each other, let them.
Let them do it with a reason, though. Don't just have them try to pull a reason out of their ass. Well, I'm also nominating Steve because Steve's really cool.
He brought the snacks. That was important. It was right there in the Dungeon Master Guide. Yeah. No. It's a good idea to know your players when you do this. I mean, all of these are know your players. Know what works with them.
So better for mental health.
Yeah. There's a big part of tabletop games is that it's a safe space to explore new ideas, concepts, stories, fantasy, fiction, characters, interactions. Role-playing is all about fantasy. It's about coming up with a story and working through it. And I think a good thing to pay attention to is to have some flagged topics, things that you're not going to cover. We're not going to talk about. These are not going to be involved in the game. I won't bring them up as a GM. You won't bring them up as a player.
Yeah, this is your social contract, your session zero stuff. You figure this out then, and then you just have, again, hopefully you're friends with the people at your table, and you could just be like, hey, listen, I'm not okay with that, and you can either just move past it or we don't have to talk about it again. Like, there's all sorts of ways that you can just kind of work through it. Again, nothing should be like, well, I can't tell the scene if I can't use this descriptor. Like, no, it doesn't really work that way. You could just let it go. That's how it works.
Yeah. Well, and you should have something in place. If somebody does break the taboo, if they intentionally go out of their way to talk about the things that you have flagged, the game ends. It ends at that point. You walk away. We're going to come back to this when you decide you want to actually play properly. Have something in place. It doesn't have to be so draconian, but with some topics, it may be.
Typically, what I've heard works really well is the white card, which is like, hey, this is like, you don't have to give an explanation for why you might not like something. Like, doesn't have to be a description there. But again, most of this should be hashed out in your session zero. But then if a topic comes up, you just have to have like, safe word, white card, whatever it is. It says like, hey, like bananas. Like, okay, we got to stop talking. Like, you could, whatever it is. And what you should have is agreed upon a way to just say like, okay, and we fast forward past this scene and we stop, using that. So like that's as simple as it gets for it.
Yeah. And this is the one house rule that I have in every game that I play is make sure that we know what topics are not to be discussed. And we don't. It's important.
Very much.
The next one fits sort of here and also in better gameplay, but I like to think of it here because of the sheer amount of frustration and anger that it prevents.
This is actually a table rule that you wrote down here. This is in Dungeons and Dragons.
Is it?
Yes.
Fantastic.
So yeah. you wrote down fail forward, and if you read on a skill check, it's literally written, rules is written, which is if you fail, you can either fail the roll and not succeed at what you do, or the GM may say that you proceed with downside, basically. like there's additional difficulties as you progress deeper into whatever you're doing. Very few people play the second part of that, which is what you're talking about here, which is the fail forward. Most people just say, well, you didn't pass your skill check, the end. But, well, what if that skill check blocks the game? Like, what if you're stuck? Now you've screwed yourself behind one roll. So, failing forward gets you as the GM. It's the improv thing. We talked about this in improv. It gets you out of like a bad situation where like, okay, well, you don't do it well. Okay. Like everyone notices that you're picking the lock. So what do you do now? It opens. Lock falls off.
Yeah. You didn't do so well with picking the lock, but you knocked it clean off the door. So the door swings wide open. Yeah. Failing forward is nice because it also like I was saying, players will have, or players that night when they just cannot roll. And they also have, you get those players out there that just can't roll every night. There's the whole, you've heard of the Will Wheaton curse?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Where it doesn't matter if the game is, you're supposed to roll high or you're supposed to roll low, whatever it is, he'll roll the other way. And if you've got something in place for failing forward, that means that person can still, interact, be part of the game. They are not prevented from enjoying the game. They just have additional things that happen to them, which in itself can be fun. Can I deal with all the sheer chaos? Yeah, let's try it.
Go back to improve with improv. It's all about this. It offers you more opportunities for a story itself. One of the interesting things with failing forward, though, is that you can't always allow people to fail forward. Some things just have to stop. And again, it depends on whether or not it's critical to the story or not.
Yeah, and to that point, I still like to prevent the frustration of telling the player you just suck. So personally, my addendum to this whole thing is that failures aren't necessarily the player's fault. It can be part of the environment. It could be something happens, or you go to leap off the building and the roof crumbles beneath your feet, ruining your jump. Or you go to pick the lock and you realize that the whole thing is rusted through. And, these sort of things, it's not the player's fault that they failed necessarily. Yeah, the roll didn't go well, but now you are introducing something else to the world. It's you failed and.
Yep.
So, yeah, you don't want your players to think that they suck at a game because they're there to have a good time.
Oh man, this final one, this one hits home. better than any other mental health one. And again, this is just in general. If you've listened to the podcast, you know that one of the things you probably shouldn't do if you've listened to that episode is allow players to engage in PvP. Okay, and this is very true here, which is no true evil PCs. Okay, like again, I don't care if you're chaotic evil. Okay.
Yeah. Well, there's a difference between being selfish and narcissistic as a character and being a dick at the table, right? An evil PC, like no true evil PCs. What I wrote here is, you can be an evil character that still works with other people. Palpatine, had his group, ran an empire, but he didn't just like go around kicking puppies and making sure that everybody was unhappy all the time. Evil people don't succeed by being mean to everybody around them. And you shouldn't be mean to the people in your party, because why are you there then?
That's true. I mean, again, it doesn't make any sense why anybody would have you join their group. And when you start doing like a gathering or a session 0, and you try to work this out, you're like, you'll know when you have a PC that has no motivation to be part of a group. It's not just being an evil PC. It's just like
yeah,
why?
I'm a lone wolf.
Why I'm Lone Wolf McLonerton and I don't work with anybody.
All right, fine. We'll find somebody else. Bye. Yeah. But the no evil PCs, like I'm playing in a game where most of the characters are evil, but they're not evil to each other because they're all working towards the same goal. They're just evil to everyone they meet. And they are a bunch of selfish jerks, but to each other, they're having a good time because they're all selfish jerks together and their goals are aligned. So you can have a party of evil people. You can even have just one evil person in a party as long as that person works with the party.
Again, the better rule here would be make sure that all of your PCs have aligned goals. It doesn't matter if they're evil. It matters that they all can align and do the same thing. Like they seek the same goal.
And don't just attack players at the table, because that's
just being a dick. Okay, you shouldn't be part of the party.
No. You got anything else?
Yes, I've decided that there will only be silly hats allowed in the house. So
fantastic. I think I have a couple.
Excellent.
I will go to my haberdashery.
Excellent. And I'm good. Anything else for you?
No, I think this sort of covers it. Find house rules that make sense to you. You don't have to use any of these. You don't have to use, I wouldn't recommend using all of them, because then it's just creating utter chaos. Finding a couple of things that work well, that make your games more enjoyable.
Yes. Again, the whole concept of this is to make your game flow better, work better, run better for you and your player group. So KYP, know your players, figure out your rules based upon their needs and what you need at the table. Here's an example of some of them. So anyways, that's going to wrap us up for this week. If you have some house rules that you really like using, things that you like to augment for your gameplay, cooperative play, mental health, all that stuff. Or if you have another category of house rules that we have not covered here, let us know. levelupyourgamepodcast@gmail.com or facebook.com/levelupyourgaming. Also, the podcast is on YouTube, so smash the like button there. Otherwise, review the podcast, recommend it to a friend, subscribe, all those good things. And that'll wrap us up for the week. So for Josh, I'm Aaron. Have a great week, everyone.
Bye.